Hello, everybody. Welcome to Virtually Bad. My name is Arthur Aviles. I'm the co-founder and artistic director of the Bronx Academy of Arts and Dance. And as we recognize more than a year into and hopefully out of this pandemic, BAD also recognizes the resilience of artists during this challenging time. Also, it's been a little more than a year since we launched Virtually Bad, so that we can continue to present works that are live in our programming. So before we get started, BAD also would like to gratefully acknowledge the privilege to work and also to create on the traditional and ancestral lands of the Lenape and the Sigwanoi Nation. So let's take a moment to give thanks for all of those who have come before us. I'm going to take my hands and put my hands on my heart and take a deep breath. BAD is so grateful we can continue to bring art and culture to the great communities out there. And as BAD continues in our 22nd year of programming, if you can believe that, I'm proud to say that since March 21st, 2020, BAD has produced more than 100 online events. We've also had virtual athletic dance classes for local 6 to 9-year-olds through our AATT Academy. And also, as we respectfully take a step back, we have also had numerous outdoor socially distant programs. And those programs were like our Bad on the Block initiative, which was Trans Visionaries. And that was outdoors at Mott Haven Bar and Grill. BAD presented Michael Michelle Lynch at the Damarush Park in Lincoln Center. That was really amazing. Back here at BAD, we had an outdoor movie showing, a mini Kiki Ball. We had dance concerts. It was all open air events. And there will be more. So our other festivals include, let's see if I can find them here. There's our Badass Women Festival in March. And in June, we have, let's see if I can find that one. There it is. It's Out Like That, which is our gay, lesbian, transgender, bisexual, two-spirited, in the life, queer, questioning, curious, gender nonconforming, you name it, we want them on this stage, presenting themselves, yourselves, and ourselves. We also have the Blacktino, the Blacktina, the Blacktinex performance series, and that's in October and November. And also at the end of the year, we have these guys. We have Los Nutcrackers, a Christmas Barajo, and that's in December. So keep in touch with us. We're keeping our ear to the ground as far as what it means to open up indoor spaces. So far, we have not had necessarily an audience inside of that, except for the really wonderful art installation that Alicia Bauman Morales through Dancing Futures gave just the other day. Beautiful outdoor, indoor event. And so BAD is a space that presents works that are empowering to women, people of color in the LGBTQ communities, and we're gonna need your support. And I've got some easy ways that you can do that. So here's one. Let me see if I can go to my room there. There you go, in my office. There you go. Here is Chulito. It's a beautiful book written by Charles Rice Gonzalez, who is our executive director. It chronicles the coming of age of a young man, coming of age in the Hunts Point section of the South Bronx. And it's a really wonderful book, beautiful read. If you go to badbronx.org, you can find out how to get one of these beautiful books. It'll support your local not-for-profit arts organization. We also have Chulo underwear. We have them in Puerto Rican. There you go. You can buy those at BAD and you can support our space. We've got Puerto Rican. We have them in Dominican. That's fun too. Got them in Dominican. We've got them in gay. There you go, Chulo underwear in gay. And we also have the Badass Women panties. So those are always fun. There you go, Badass Women panties for him and for her. Anybody you would like to have them. Those are wonderful ways that you can support our space. So also know that you can use the chat box. Feel free to do that at any time that you would like. And at the end of the event, Emmanuel, BAD's new technical coordinator, will play some disco music for some of you. You know, there'll be like a moment for you to do some boogie down, or you could send some chats to the artists just for a moment, and then we're out of here. Everything is done. Also in the chat, you can find today's program. Okay, so now today's show. So this is one of our most important collaborators. It's Bepatian, under the direction of the wonderful Dr. Jane Gabriels. And today we have the launch celebration of the booklet, Write Your Future. It's a companion to Dancing Futures and Mentor Collaborative Residency. It's beautifully produced by Bepatian, so grateful, Dr. Jane Gabriels, you know, documenting the great work these artists have given to BAD and have given to the world. So it's a collection of essays from 2017 to 2019. We have some of the many artists in conversation today about the dance writings and the creative process, and it's hosted by Bronx dance artist Joan Bradford, who will fill you in a moment. So BAD can't thank Bepatian enough for inviting us to partner in this ongoing residency. It's initiated by Bepatian in partnership with BAD and funded by the Jerome Foundation, as well as in part by the Shelley Donald Rubin Foundation, public funds from the Department of Cultural Affairs, in partnership with the City Council public funds from Decentralization Program. It's a re-grant program of New York State Council on the Arts with support from the governor, Andrew Cuomo, and New York State Arts Legislature. And it's administered by the Bronx Council on the Arts, the New Yankee Stadium Community Benefits Fund, Inc., and the generosity of many individual donors to Bepatian Bronx Arts Collaborative. So let's begin. And without further ado, I give to you Bronx choreographer and tonight's host, Joan Bradford. Hey, Joan.
Thank you, Arthur. Hi, everyone, and welcome. My name is Joan Bradford. I use the pronoun she, her, hers, and I'm a dancer, choreographer, teaching artist, arts administrator, all the dance artist hats, proudly born, raised, and still residing in the Bronx, New York. I began my journey with BAD and Bepatian in 2019, which feels long ago, but also yesterday at the same time through the Dance Your Future Artist and Mentor Collaborative Residency. I had the mentorship of Cynthia Mosley and Alexandra Beller, and Stephanie George, who you will hear from tonight, was my writer. And from there, I've been in great collaboration and community with BAD and Bepatian through the Bronx APAP, through some showings virtually during the pandemic with Ostos, and BAD and Bepatian, which I'm very thankful for, kept us dancing even on the Zoom. So with that, I'm thrilled to be in community with Bronx-based artists and artists interacting with this beautiful borough. I'm calling in from unceded Lenape-Hokan Siwanoy land. And before we get started, I want to take a moment to give a huge shout out to Dr. Jane Gabriels, who has encouraged myself and many, many dance performance artists before me to pair up with a writer. For the artist you'll be hearing from this evening, this pairing really is magical and often not tapped into. These partnerships have allowed stories and documentation of work to be put into the hands of the artist, for artists to be seen in the choreographic creative process, and for written documentation of work to be aligned to the values and integrity of the piece. These pairings have allowed a visceral medium such as live performance to be saved and preserved in the art of words and language. This is not a random critic watching a piece and writing about what they thought they saw. This has been a relationship that's evolving artist to artist to uplift and amplify the pieces that you may or may not see clips of tonight. So I'm deeply, deeply grateful for this opportunity. And now all the artists here have these beautiful writings that we'll have and hold forever, and we will obnoxiously quote forever. So thank you for that. Really excited for tonight, really excited to hear from all the artists. And with that, I'm going to pass it to Dr. Jane Gabriels, Director of Bepatian.
I hope it's work there. Hey, thank you so much, Joan and Arthur. Always these nice introductions. So yeah, that was really beautiful, Joan. I love that. The integrity of the piece, exactly. Because that's the fun thing. gonna start in the middle, then I'll have an introduction. But that's part of it is just to, for the writer, it's like, no review, no cold, nothing, just like, what's the relationship, what's the thing, what are you getting out of it? It's creative writing. And I think it's really important to have that so that we can keep this kind of work bubbling and growing, So let's see, my official things to say. Pepetian was founded in 1983 by Merian Soto, Pepona Sorio, and Patty Bradshaw. I started working there in 99. We've been partnering with BAD since it started 2001. And Arthur worked with Merian Soto and something in Puerto Rico in like the mid 1990s. So there's a big connection, which has been really great. And this residency began in 2014. I was talking to some artists and they were like, we have to do more to support emerging dance artists in the Bronx. So I was like, okay, let's try this residency. And the first, a little story, but the first artist was Awilda Rodriguez Laura, who happened to be in New York from Puerto Rico at that moment. And she took a big leap. Like I had a little bit to offer her because I had applied to Jerome and they were like, great idea, but no funding. I was like, ugh. But we had a little bit of funding and Awilda took the chance and she made it happen. And that's the thing. She made a piece, we documented it. She had that video, she got 2 gigs out of it right away. Like that's all, you just need a little bit of TLC. And so then when I showed that to Jerome, then they were like, oh, okay, yeah. So Jerome has been funding this since 2015. So we're now in our 8th annual year. It's really exciting. Let's see, what else? Yeah, and the writing part of it, I added in 2017 because I was just like, we're missing that. And there's no reviews, and we don't want reviews. We want more than reviews. So that started. And what I wanted to do with it is that the dance artists choose the writer. And for sometimes the dance artists were like, I don't know a writer. It's like, that's okay. We'll just find someone and you can connect. And then you see if it's if it makes sense for you or not. So there've been some really nice little moments like that. The other thing I want to say about this booklet that took, can you see it? Kind of, but it's a beautiful booklet. And I want to give shout out to Patra, As the Crow Walks, who is the designer for this booklet. Patra can make jewels out of rocks or rocks are jewels, but she can really do it. I really do want to thank Patra for saving the day. And we had a lot of fun putting this together and it was really fun to put 3 years and just to feel like, I don't know, like I have a book. We gave artists a book. And yeah, we did have a little bit of an artist, a dance artist and writers speaking downtown. I'm like, that's great. We did it downtown. That's great. But it doesn't count if it's not happening in the Bronx. So that's why this event is to give us a launch in the Bronx, in the borough where all this work started and was made. And there's probably things that I'm forgetting to say, but I think that's good. You've got the general gist. And I'm going to send it back to Joan, who is going to host the event and introduce all these beautiful people that are here today. I will say that Demetrius had a family emergency. These are the days, people, we have to stay together. And he won't be able to be here, but that's okay because we've got a lot of great stuff to share with you. Okay, thank you so much. Back to you, Joan. Thanks again.
Thanks, Jane. So I'm going to be sharing work I created through the Dance Your Future Artist Collaborative Mentor Residency. I named this, I was under the mentorship of Sydney Mosley and Alexandra Beller. Stephanie George, who is here with us this evening, was my writer. And I just want to name all the artists that performed in the piece that we're going to see a video clip of. The performers created the work in collaboration with myself, but definitely in collaboration with, and those artists are Gabrielle Burgess, Bethany Chang, Gemma Dalfose, Rebecca Gual, and Sophie Tiboletti. And the music is by Leslie Flanagan, and this piece is titled Stairs. And that's a little clip. Piece was 40 minutes, so that's a good 3 minutes and 40 seconds, I believe. Thanks for watching that and letting me share that. So I'm going to now invite Stephanie George, who was the writer on this project, to introduce themselves and be in conversation with me about this process. Hi, Stephanie.
Hi, Joan, and hi, everyone. My name is Stephanie George. I am Bronx born, raised, still residing, as Joan likes to say. And I think it was really an honor for me to be able to be back in the world of stairs, again, just for those last few moments, but to be able to work with someone who has such a strong collaborative vision as Joan. I'm a poet, not traditionally a dance writer in any way. So I think the opportunity for me to be able to wrestle with how to put words together to describe the energy of the project and to describe the nature of the collaboration. But I think specifically like who Joan is as an artist, what she has to say to the world was really something like extraordinary and challenging in the most, I think, exciting ways. It felt like a climb. And I think that that's what Joan's work asked us to do, to climb in service of something bigger and broader. So I am very excited to be in this world and to be able to chat with you all today about this work.
Thank you, Stephanie. I feel like every time you talk about me or this piece, I just feel so seen, and you can put the words to the things that I don't have the words to. So I think that's one special part of this collaboration. And I think I'll just say a little bit of the name of the work and what it's about before we dive in the briefest way I possibly can. So the piece was a direct reflection of actually some pieces I was seeing about domestic violence. I'm a domestic violence survivor, and I kept seeing these pieces where people were punching and there was this violence and it was re-traumatizing. And I often felt like the people choreographing it didn't maybe go, I can't assume, but it felt as if maybe they didn't go through this experience. So I really wanted to create something that highlighted that, but again, wouldn't re-traumatize, and also could be taken in from people of like many different experiences, and they can kind of take what they have from it and leave what they don't. And yeah, the idea of stairs was those platforms being like a zoomed in staircase. And sometimes when people have like bruising or like, you know, scarring or cuts that people can see, they say, oh, I've fallen down the stairs. So that was kind of like where that idea came from. Yeah, I think that's like the briefest way to explain it. And this was all explained to Stephanie at our first meeting at Starbucks, where we stayed so long they had to ask us to leave the Starbucks.
But I feel like that in so many ways also just describes the process. Like for two people who are so like intimately connected and adjacent. I'm more adjacent, but I think Joan is in the dance world. Like for us to be able to say, hey, let's meet up. And it's not, you know, downtown, it's not Brooklyn, but it's here in our neighborhood. Like I feel like even that was just such a great part of like, okay, let's hop on the train 2 stops and not like an hour-long commute. So I feel like all of the ways that we were able to just like create comfort and create like, we are home, we are at ease talking about this work, and figuring out ways to find language that represents where we are in the Bronx and in that. And I think, you know, I feel like what I really was struck by was just like your courage. You know, I think that we ask artists, we ask dancers, we ask creators to share a lot of themselves in service of the art, in service of something that makes us feel. And I think immediately I felt how courageous your vision was. Immediately I felt like that it was work that you knew you had to create, and that you were willing to like excavate parts of your own life and your own story to be able to make this work. And that is always something I think to be honored and to be celebrated and to be championed. Yeah.
Thank you for saying that, Stephanie. And I will say that meeting with you and having your support and the support, and it just, I think I said this when we were having a conversation a few weeks ago, like I just felt there was so much care. There was so much care in you supporting this piece and the questions you were asking and the insight you were giving. And funny enough, we didn't know each other at all before this. I was the person that Jane had mentioned was like, I don't know a writer. I don't know. And Fauna Fraser, I think, connected us, which is shout out to Fauna. Thank you for that. And it just worked. It just felt like it worked. And I felt it just felt, I think it felt easy. It felt really easy to talk with you. It felt really easy to share my thoughts with you. And I think there is something special about talking to other artists that aren't in the dance field sometimes. I just think the perspective, I think like dance artists sometimes can be like very siloed, and we're kind of like in this, bubble. And, to step outside of that and just to hear other opinions and voices and ways of saying things just blew my mind. And I really felt like you got it. And in the writing, I felt like, again, just seen. I felt so seen. And those were words I could never put together myself. So I'm so grateful for that. I don't think I've had many other opportunities in my life where I'm like, wow, I really feel seen for like 100% of the things I'm thinking and feeling. So I think that's so special about this process, and not a critique. I can go on.
No, and I feel like just even thinking back and reflecting a little bit on, when Joan says it's not a critique, I think for me, that was really, really exciting. This is not criticism. Like, I am not delving into your work. And the questions that I'm posing are, and I think really in terms of creative process, like, how do I understand this as someone in the audience, as someone being able to bear witness to what is? And I feel like if, in some ways, I hope that too is like the future of dance. And I feel like we've had so many exciting conversations about it, but what does it mean to be in relationship, right? To be able to, especially as writers and people who are invested in the field that aren't coming from traditional pathways, like, how can we hold space to invite new audiences and new people who very much feel the sensations and the experiences of being a witness, of being in the audience, but feel like if their language, or that they're not in the they're not able to participate because they think that there is a language that one needs to have to participate. And although there are times that you do need to be able to speak the language to be in the conversation, I think there is something special about the fact that we know what we feel. And what is it, Audre Lorde, that says that our feelings are our most intimate pathway to liberation. And so I think what you gave us in terms of material, I just remember being in the audience and people, even though it's a personal story of your experiences, of your survival, people being like, this is my life. Like, you know what I'm saying? This is me waking up. And I think after a year, like last year, and COVID, and really just the world being like, this is not enough. I think your piece came at a really kind of beautiful moment to remind people about that moment of climbing, right? And how intimate that is to the fact that we want to live. And so I think it's just a matter too of timing, like, having the right thing to say and saying it in a moment that precedes or invites or is just, I think, perfectly attuned with where the world is or is going to be. Like, and I think I wrote a lot about solve and about medicine. And I think that's a question that I ask: where is the medicine? And there doesn't always need to be medicine work. But I feel like you gave us the war and you gave us the medicine. And that's important.
Wow. The war and the medicine. Oh, it's like everything she says, it's so beautiful. I would love to ask you, Stephanie. I know you were such a big part, you like were a part of my process. What was your process like in writing about this? Can you share some of that?
Yeah, no, wonderful question. I think I literally, so I had a notebook specially for you. My Gemini loves is like, this is Joan's notebook. And I should have excavated that for this process. But I had a notebook, and I think every single conversation that we had, I had notes in it. And then I think, I recorded our conversations just to make sure that I was like I wanted to be able to capture the inflection in which you spoke in your voice, which you spoke about your project. Like, there are all of these tones and hues and textures, I think, that at least poetically, like I like kind of go and I write down like, okay, this and this and this, and I do some maps. But I think especially in a kind of like long form nature of this project, I was like, okay, these are the things that I know that Joan feels about the work. These are the things that I know that Joan has expressed to me are her urgencies, are the compelling and driving forces of that work. And so I think like trying to capture that, like what is the voice here, but also trying to catch like what is happening, right? How can I convey to someone what it felt like to be in the audience at BAD in November, and how did the audience feel? How did the audience gasp? But then also like capturing of like this offering, I think that you had to give the world, like, you know, and what it means to be changed by having seen art. So I feel like I was like kind of just like balancing that back and forth and like literally like rearranging and trying to like weave and figure out, okay, does this introduce this better, right? Does this do this better? And trying to find the tone and like lots of rewrites. But I think really just what is the thing behind the thing that we're trying to say? What is the feeling? You know?
Well, I never thought about you. Well, it makes sense with how I know how you are, and you're very diligent, you're very detailed, but just thinking about like listening to someone's tone or what makes them feel like, you know, that's the word, the urgency, that I never thought of it like that. And I do think, not to make it all about dance, I do think like the way you're weaving, the way you're saying things up, like is an act of choreography to then get it into writing. And again, it's just like how those two things are so intertwined. And it's also just like coming to the surface too, that I think sometimes like as dance artists, we're like, we're going to be the choreographer, we're going to be the costume designer, we're going to be the set designer, we're going to organize the rehearsals, we're going to be the dramaturg, whatever. And I think this idea, and we spoke about this in the conversation, like just asking for help. And this was kind of like the help I didn't know I needed. I'm not an expert in dramaturgy, or we did some astrology work because Stephanie also does that. And that was like insightful. And, you know, I'm just thinking more of like, what are the ways, like as a creative or as an artist, like we can reach out for like this help. It really does feel like help. It feels like I don't know the word for it. It just brings everything to like a whole new level to have someone else look at it and give these points of view and this feedback. So I don't think I could, I really do hope to work with Stephanie over and over and over and over again. And now I feel like I don't know if I could get into a process without that. I think now this feels like a really, really important aspect. So.
No, I feel like, you know, I think that what is it? And Jay Bowie calls it like, you know, being an outsider in the work, right? Like,
yes.
And I think more of us are enlisting that fact of like, we don't want to create in isolation, like, you know, and that the truest and the most exciting parts of us are reflected back to us in community. And I feel like, you know, my development cap, which is always on, is like, you know, how can we get institutions to begin to realize that like it is an ecosystem, right? Like in order to support like choreographers and dancers, we support dance writers that grow, like, you know, that come up with them. We support, you know, everywhere, stage managers, everyone, you know, whether it's videographers, like, but this is a part of the ecosystem. And it works when we're in concert. It works when we are collaborating and generating and saying like, okay, like, you know, now that we have a new world, a post-pandemic world, what does it mean to think about both virtual programming and in-person programming, right? Like, what does it mean that we are going to be shifting away from institutions where we all sit inside and kind of view the work together? So I think that the world has shifted, and I am grateful that collaborations like ours have been able to anticipate, adjust, lie in wait for the new world, you know? I don't know how much time we have, but I do feel like I want to read something and then
Yeah.
maybe that's her time. I feel like someone will tell us. Like,
I think that sounds good. That sounds like a good plan to me.
okay. So I think to kind of just contextualize what I'll read a little bit. So there is a moment in the work where the piece shifts, right? Where the tone of slaps and punches, the recreation of it shifts into something delicate. And I resist to say the word redemptive, because what does that mean? And I feel like it's charged, but it is something of like revisiting and reintroducing the way that one saw those languages previously. So I'll read a little bit. And so Bradford's vision is most radiant in these later phrases as she attempts to avoid re-traumatizing survivors. She offers a personal project of remembering and ritualizing pain to move through it, a self-possessed embodiment. Stomps, crouches, and falls take on new memories in the body, from inflicted wounds to markers of warriorship. Each phrase dislodging prior trauma by layering new meaning and embodied experiences of pain. Bradford brilliantly uses brutal repetition to enlist our empathy as an audience, to bring us to the edge of our seats and hearts and keep us there. Stairs offers a timely and profound message in a cultural moment defined by the inescapable immediacy of structural violence. It resists a message of transcendence, opting instead to magnify the toll of trauma on the body, both a battlefield and a site of healing. The stairs, once an immovable and unchanging structure, transforms into a gathering place. We are transported from a war zone to a site of radical and empathetic healing. Bradford has responded with a compelling feminist and spiritual intervention. She shows how climbing can be a balm to weary hearts, beckoning us to ourselves.
Oh, I get so emotional. Oh, so beautiful. I'm so grateful for the things you wrote. And I think seen is just the only thing I can say after that. Thank you. So thank you for reading that. Thank you for this conversation. Thank you for this writing. I have my little book on my bookshelf. I look at it all the time. It's going to be with me forever, which is really the beauty of this. So thank you, Stephanie.
And thank you. I'm really honored. And I think that Bad and Capitan, like everything has been just a really wonderful experience for me. I think especially I was going through a difficult time. And I'm really grateful that this was the community that I got to experience at that time.
Yes. Tatiana and Bad for life. Yes. Well, great. Thank you, Stephanie. I'm going to move us on to our next artist. My heart feels so warm. I'm going to introduce us to dance artist and theater director, Nile Harris, who is then going to introduce us to the project writer on the piece, Yasmeen Chism.
Hello, everyone. Hi. My name is Nile Harris. Thank you, Joan, for that, and Stephanie for that wonderful sharing and for that introduction. Like Joan said, I'm a performing artist based in New York City, and I'm really grateful to be a part of this Papation family. I'll be showing a brief video selection from a work of mine called The Rise and Fall of the Huxtable Family, episode 3. This is actually a video from a work in process showing that was done in early 2019. My work was slated to premiere in April of 2020 or May of 2020. And as we all know, May of 2020 had different plans for us performing artists. So I'm really excited to be in conversation with Yasmeen about this work in a moment and to speak a little bit more about this work. So without further ado, I would love to show, it's about a 3-minute sample from this work and get into some conversation.
Get down on your knees. On your knees. Put your hands up. Don't move. You understand? You understand not to move?
One way, the right way, white.
Thank you, Emmanuel. So that is a 3-minute work in process. It was in early 2019. It feels like a different world watching it now. But yeah, so without further ado, I would love to welcome Yasmeen to join me. Yasmeen is a PhD candidate at NYU in their Department of Performance Studies and a soon-to-be doctoral fellow at the Urban Democracy Lab. And amazing scholar, and I'm really excited to be speaking with you today. What's up, Yasmeen? How are you?
I'm good. This digital life, Zoom life, but I'm doing well.
I know. Thank you for taking some time to talk with me today.
No problem. I'm excited to, the opening title, first word is reflections. So I'm just excited to reflect again on your work and sort of my process through it. And also, I think the ways, at least for me as a theorist or a writer, like the ways that society is inescapable from how I engage with work. So specifically given the kind of the temporal outlines of what I was writing under and what you were producing or anticipating to produce. So I think this will be a nice discussion.
For sure. Where should we begin? I mean, there's so much. I mean, the essay that you wrote
I have a question.
Really... Okay.
Yeah, I have a question for you first. So first, I want to know what made you select that 3-minute and 54-second piece that we had. Like, why that selection?
I picked that selection because that was so this work has an episodic work. I was performing it for about 3 years in different venues across the world, and that was the 3 minutes that I performed in Bronx at BAD. So it felt like a really appropriate selection to revisit for this showing tonight. And I also think that it's like it shows the whole arc. It has an arc in its own 3 minutes. It has some returning sound design. I make all the sound design myself for this work, and the sirens, the heartbeat flatlining. It just kind of has a really nice narrative arc for me. I didn't remember at the beginning of this conversation. I know that we're all dance artists here, but I do really consider myself to be a performing artist in the sense that I have a theater background and really am trying to craft dramaturgically kind of in conversation with the theater. So I really do think about beginning, middle, and intention, and sort of almost Stanislavski-based sort of character intentions as I think about this work. And I felt like this 3-minute section kind of like gave all of those colors and was like a nice little peek into this work if you maybe not be familiar with it.
No, I completely agree. I think one of my favorite parts about engaging with your work was the music selection. Because I got an early start when I began this academic journey in hip hop studies. And I really think that the way you braided in, right, like this chopped and screwed, you had Beyonce, and then in the piece that I engaged with and kind of worked with, you had like Blueface, right? So you had like these sonic pinnings that I think were also so critical to the work as a dance piece, as a theater piece, that I think was a really nice braiding of that. So I completely agree that the selection that you have allows viewers who have not, I've watched it and rewatched it. I think it allows viewers to have a really good idea of politically what you're engaging in, and visually what the piece is about, sonically what it's about. And I think, we can kind of circle back to, but I think that there's a way for me how you end with the sirens, right? And even watching it again as an audience member, I still feel that tinge of anxiety, knowing that the light's going to go off and you are here, right? But there's a way, and I open, which I'm going to read before we close, with because of the conditions under which I was writing this piece, that siren, it just hit a little bit differently, right? Like it's always already something that as a Black person in society I'm thinking about, right? Like in relation to police, but I think the way that I wrote about it and now I'm watching it and we're reflecting on it, it's ever more important, I think.
Thank you for that, Yasmeen. Yeah, there's something going back to what you mentioned about the chopped and screwed sort of musical selections. This piece is about mourning in its own way, though it may be about representations of Black identity. I feel like for me, what chopped and screwed music does, it's like a heartbreak. It's like heartbreak. It's just like endless heartbreak, which in some sort of manifestations is a state of Blackness, is a state of mourning, is an internal state of mourning. But for me, the chopped and screwed music allows just my heart to break open. And I feel like you get to hear a different sort of resonance in the melodies. And then that brings us into the siren that turns into this heart monitor flatline, which is, how many of these stories or run-ins with the police can go. So I really appreciate your thoughtful reflections on that. It really, like Joan was saying, the experience of having someone engage your work. I mean, I think that we all are coming from a space of being emerging artists, whatever that term means, and all of its sort of multiplicities. But to have someone so thoughtfully engage your work and to see things that you may not even see in your work yourself, or may not have the confidence to see in your work, was so like transformative for me as an artist. And I really cherish this essay a lot. So I just wanted to say that. Do we want to read a little bit from the essay?
No, but first I want to pause and I want to thank you for sharing your work with me. And I think, listening to Joan and Stephanie talk about how they were meeting in person and kind of engaging and the liveness of it, it was the best kind of jealousy, right? Not like in a bad kind where you got to watch me, but it was like I was jealous of that interaction because we really sort of pieced this together digitally in the midst of being terrified of everything that was going on, because this was at the height of it. So I think one sort of, as we prepared for this, one thing that I considered was how the digital aspect as compared to a live performance, how as an artist you felt like that might have impacted my engagement with it or future engagement with it, or did you have any sort of thoughts about how the digital realm of things, how that is with your work?
Most definitely. The sort of digitality that we're all living in now, and how this work does only exist as a digital archive or as a digital sort of ephemera, has really excited me about the work in a way. This work is referential to mass media and televised media in a way. So the experience of getting to watch this work online feels kind of appropriate. Some of this work is kind of like in response to like, there's something that I want to say around like, do with my body what you will. It's kind of like a subject that I'm dealing with. Like I already feel like, I feel like I am a victim of subjugation, and that's something that I'm trying to figure out in this work. And then as a medium, getting to scrub through the video, rewind it, pause, reflect, to do that kind of gives you as a viewer ownership over my body in a way. And there's like a continuation of that sort of like physical domination that I think that the experience of engaging the work online gives you that you may not get online. So I think that that's something that I've been thinking about, that I really do appreciate through this new sort of format that we've been engaging the work.
No, and I do want to say quickly that the digital aspect of my ability to, like you said, scrub through it, or if I'm doing like, eating dinner and engaging with your work and the doorbell rings, I'm able to pause and then come back, but how that separation from that moment, how that might impact my re-engagement with it. So yeah, I think, as someone who's in performance studies, I'm always thinking about different sorts of archives, different sorts of performances, how they are performed, liveness, things being twice performed, like all of these certain kind of performative buzzwords around performance studies. But I think it just hits a little different when you're in the midst of it and having to write through all of those things and reflect on it. And I think, as the previous presenter said, and as we kind of opened with, I really did enjoy the fact that this was not a review in that sort of sense, or not a critique in that way. And that's, reflections, that's what I did. I reflected on it. And I think even if I were to reflect on it again, my engagement with it and my thoughts would be completely different, because I think that's the beauty of your work. It's temporarily, like, it's going to be relevant. It's going to be like the hot thing all the time, because the way that you're able to think about Blackness and politics, big P, little p, all of those things are going to, you're able to enter your work and do that in certain ways. So I did want to read, I wanted to get back to what you said earlier. I did want to read briefly just 2 or 3 paragraphs from the introduction, which I think do a good job, just like you had a little sampling. I think they provide a sort of sampling too of the way that I engaged with your work. I have my glasses on deck so I could do this properly. So I said, initially, my first draft thought through liveness, audience, and what it meant to engage with this episodic trilogy in the midst of a pandemic. I also entangled some of the themes around Blackness and more broadly representation alongside the beautiful articulations that were presented in the Emergent Dramaturgy's online discussion. In this talk, Nile and Tony Jenkins, who's not here, but was a great person for you to be in conversation with, recounted their journey of creating this episodic trilogy, the rise and fall of the Huxtable family, and how they envision their work developing in the future. The title of their discussion, Emergent Dramaturgies, is a framework that Harris developed to consider how one's engagement with performance can change in an ever-changing sociological climate. Later in this piece, I expand on the implementation. Then, like most people, I was horrifically overwhelmed by the barrage of Black folks being killed by cops, both formerly and presently employed. As we watched police murder these Black folks, as we all attempted to manage life in the midst of a global health pandemic, we were then again reminded of the precarity that marred Black life. As I attempted to edit my writing, I was haunted by Breonna Taylor, by Ahmaud Arbery, by George Floyd, by Tony McDade, and all of the other names that I will never know. My editing practice took on a new form because I could no longer engage with scenes from the rise and the fall of the Huxtable family without recalling these deaths. The longer I lingered with those feelings, the more I realized I was taking up the very practice of emergent dramaturgies. In that way, emergent dramaturgies are attuned to the ways in which we engage with performances based on and even in response to the social political conditions that might inform our interactions. During my exploration into the potentiality of emergent dramaturgies, I better understood some of what was intended by this practice, both on stage and as a theoretical framework. As you will read, Nile braided together emergent dramaturgies in an effort to open up and allow for an ever-changing process and engagement. And then just briefly, I'll close with, below, I present a slicing of the 2 pieces I wrote in response to the rise and the fall of the Huxtable family. Initially, I wrote a reflection of the entire episodic trilogy. However, in the interest of time and space, I decided to whittle it down and include sections that felt most relevant and timely. While I demarcated the order in which I wrote the pieces, I think that they both carry a different weight and glean something very different from the episodes. As the reader, I invite you to implement a reading practice akin to emergent dramaturgies that you will soon discover, and consider how my engagement with the pieces shifted in a very short amount of time. So yeah, I think that was a way of, thank you. I hate hearing my writing. I think even though it's published in a whole book, right? But I think that's just a way for for me to kind of allow the audience to see how this piece, how I was reflecting on it and how heavy it was for me to write about it. Thinking about the politics of the time, thinking about being a Black person, right? Like a person first, before I'm a scholar, before I'm a reader, before I'm an academic, right? Like this is the world that I have to live in. So, and then one last thing that I think is really worth mentioning. So I love the connection that we have to Winston-Salem, North Carolina, where you received your training, and where I'm from. So it might not be the boogie down, right? Like we had everybody's repping the Bronx really hard tonight. But I do think that there's a way that Winston-Salem, that was a beautiful connection for us to have.
Thank you, Yasmeen. That was so beautiful. Hearing that introduction meant the world to me. And I think I reheard for the first time. I love your implication of allowing readers to engage the work like the process in an emergent way. I think that that is such a, I want to say it's a generous offering. I guess we're like offering it to one another. Like I offered it as the work and you offered it to me, and then you offered it to the reader. But it's really, really overwhelming to hear. So in a positive way. So thank you. And also rep Winston-Salem. Yes. And I just want to say,
straightforward, right?
Exactly. I know that we're like all like we're serious artists and we're
Yes.
serious scholars and all of this, but I really just enjoy you so much, Yasmeen, to the bottom of my heart. I love
you.
getting to be in conversation with you. You always find a way to make me laugh, and we can make each other laugh in a really beautiful way that feels really special. And I have really appreciated this time to connect. So thank you. And thank
Well,
you.
I love your work. You have a forever fan. And I am just so excited to see your greatness expand. So thank you for sharing it with me.
Thank you. All right. Well, I would love to pass it back over to Joan, who will introduce us to our next speaker. Thank you again to Jane at Papillon and at all the folks at BAD. It's been such a pleasure.
Yes. Oh. I just feel the connection. Shout out Salem. We're gonna shout them out tonight, not just the Bronx. Yeah, just like this overwhelming feeling of understanding. There's this understanding. This feels like, oh, my heart just feels warm. So with that, I'm gonna introduce the next pairings. So next we have Passion Fruit Dance Company. We have Lauriane Ogay and Mai Lê Hô, and they are going to introduce themselves and share some work. So pass it on to you.
Hi. Thank you, Nile. Thank you, Joan. Thank you, Stephanie. Thank you, Yasmeen, for your shares. It is filling, yes. My name is Mai Lê, and I am half French, half Vietnamese. I dance with Passion Fruit. Tatiana can't be here with us tonight, but Lauriane will tell you a bit more about that. Passing it on to you.
Yes, hi everyone. Very happy to be here. First of all, thank you, Joan, for this introduction. Thank you, Jane, Peppertan, and Bad for this amazing opportunity as usual. So as Mai Lê said, Tatiana Desardouin couldn't be here tonight. She is the artistic director, choreographer, the brain behind Passion Fruit Dance Company. So the video that you will see is a casual conversation that we had with our writer, Joya Powell. And we created, so we talked about the piece, how it went for us, the process, where we are with the piece right now. And the first thing you're going to see of the video is our writer reading some words, and we dance on it. So we did a little montage editing, so I hope you're going to enjoy it.
It surges through the floor, up into the seats, pulses inside the walls, and fills the air at the Bronx Academy of Arts and Dance, BAD. It takes hold and reverberates within the audience. The groove. On Friday, November 10th, 2017, Passion Fruit Dance Company premiered their evening-length piece, Dance Within Your Dance, presented by Papillon in a substantial collaborative residency project with BAD. Choreographed by Tatiana Desardouin, the company features captivating international performers, Tatiana Desardouin, Swiss Haitian, Mai Lê Hô, French Vietnamese, and Lauriane Ogay, Swiss, all now residing in New York City. Dance Within Your Dance is a polyrhythmic ciphering portal that dives into the essence of the groove in hip hop and house dance. The groove, as described by Eriko, a dancer from Japan interviewed in the film that accompanies the performance. It's like a secret ingredient of everything. The performance starts with music by Marabou State featuring Pedestrian, which starts softly and is then layered with syncopated beats, which allow the ear to hear each dynamic break of silence. The rhythms toy with the senses, catch the audience off guard, and turns them around until they feel energized, lifted. Inside this world of sound and space, the dancers effortlessly isolate different body parts, feet, head, arms, pelvis, while they move within the constraints of a diagonal ray of light. Body parts of each dancer move in different directions. The dancers' movements start to morph and melt into possibilities. They explore the space with their bodies, carving and swirling in percussive movements. They seem to be in a state of trance.
Thank you, Joya, for your words.
Thank you for your movement, Tatiana. Hey, y'all, my name is Joya Powell, and I am the author of a Grooveology, Reflections on Dance Within Your Dance, which was featured in the Papatian book called Write Your Futures. Super excited to be here with Passion Fruit Dance Company.
Thank you so much, everyone, to be here. I'm Tatiana Desardouin, the director, choreographer of Passion Fruit Dance Company. From Haiti in Switzerland, 37 years old, representing hip hop and house. And yeah, so happy to introduce you to the work today.
So hi everyone, my name is Lauriane Ogay. I come from Switzerland. I'm one of the core members of Passion Fruit Dance Company. I'm 35 years old and I now live in New York for 9 years.
And hello everyone, my name is Mai Lê, born and raised in France, half French, half Vietnamese, and have been living in New York for 12 years, core member of Passion Fruit as well. Thank you.
So about the piece, what I can say was a long journey to be able to create the final version of it. But in the process of the residency that we had the pleasure to do at BAD, for the Dance Your Future residency, curated by Pepeshin and BAD. We previously started to have snippet of this piece putting together. We actually started in 2016 and we had 5 minutes and then we stretched it to 10 minutes to perform for an event that Jane was curating. And then from there, we got this opportunity to stretch it and to make it longer and longer to present it at BAD. It was very difficult because not everything went the way we wanted. Something happened with our sister Lauriane, unfortunately. But yeah, I will say long process of many different versions to get what we needed at the end.
Yeah, so as Tatiana said, so we started the piece, it was maybe 5 minutes, 3 of us, and then we had this opportunity to go to BAD and do a 1 hour show or 1 evening length show. And I hurt myself. It wasn't even in the middle of the process, but we were already working on it, and then I hurt my knee. So I tear the ACL. So there was no way for me to do it fully. I was out for more than 9 months. The good thing about it is Tatiana found a way. So she had to redo the work at only 2, Mai Lê and Tatiana. And then since I was able to work and do some little move, she decided to still keep me in the piece for some part. So I did the silence part of this show. And then we find other way to add me here and there to make even more more sense to the story and the piece. So yeah, it was a lot of work to think and trying to gather all the pieces, you know.
Right. So there's been like different versions of it, from 5 minutes to 10 minutes, 25 minutes, 35 minutes to an hour at that. That was involuntarily, you know, switched to 2 from 3. And then we kept on evolving the piece after that as well. Added some lighting. Tatiana wanted to make it a more immersive experience. So instead of having one projection, the room had all 3 walls with the video projected, with videos from the club and the interviews. And as well, there was a work with shadows, as dancing in the shadows. And what else? There was a play on light. Yeah, more intricate lighting, stage lighting, and we reincorporated, of course, Lauriane was in the full piece. So there was so many versions, so many changes, sometimes voluntary changes, sometimes involuntary changes. And finally, we were able to do the full piece at Dance Place as Tatiana had envisioned it.
And just lastly, to add to what she said, has evolved. We recently did another version for Masmoka, again back to 2. This time Mai Lê Hô wasn't present, but the way we did it is because I still wanted to offer this piece, even because we did it many times 2 or 1, so I knew we could adapt it. But this time we incorporated something else, an introduction of Lauriane Ogay's photography, where we did an edited version of it, where we layered movement on top of a photography. And all the photos that she took is like groove related, because she took it in our own community environment, from clubs, from Mai Lé's event Layer Rhythm, from Versus Style, from Ladies of Hip Hop, even all dancers from the community in movement. So it was a nice way to introduce in the museum photos, but also connect it directly to the theme of the piece. So that's where we're at right now. I think I'm going to keep that version when we're back at 3.
Awesome. It was definitely an incredible experience to be a part of your process, your rehearsal process, when you were working on it back for the 2017 version. And I remember very vividly going to Queens to meet you all in order to sit in on the rehearsal process and get to know you a little bit better. And I remember getting off the train and just being like, where am I? And it was like this disorientation that happened for me. And yet, as soon as I entered the studio space, it was the groove that helped reground me, you know? And I think that that's what's truly present in the work, and hopefully also in the writing, is this understanding of the groove within our own personal interpretation of the music and sound in our environments, as well as this connectivity between each other. So the fact that you guys allowed me into your space and welcomed me there, it was that connection then with you all that helped the groove also reside in me. So I really appreciate that. And also I just want to quickly big up Jane Gabriels of Tatiana and Bad for making this project possible. And we're going to jump into another segment of the writing. A voice echoes from above stating, "I did what I had to." As their bodies mirror the statement through a threading floor sequence, arms and legs looping through each other in a maze of limbs, puzzle pieces that seamlessly fit together, yet have no defining edges. Their threading phrase turns into a tutting exploration, a technique inspired by ancient Egyptian hieroglyphics, with sharp, angular movements with which the dancers punctuate the air. These gestures are an overscore to their footwork, which remains light yet grounded in intricate, fast patterns. The space surges with heightened energy when the dancers notice their similar moves. Their interactions become one of joy, and their stoic gazes relax. Elation permeates the atmosphere, and the audience is able to peer into the hearts of the dancers. Their passion becomes the nourishing fruit of dynamic choreography.
The inspiration behind Dance Within Your Dance is the groove. This is an important element of the dance culture that is really put aside and create that gap in the understanding of what is hip hop, what is house, or anything under the hip hop umbrella. So the idea was like, how can I bring a deeper understanding of what is the groove so people can understand that it's not an aesthetic, but a social thing, that it needs to be there no matter what. And this is fundamentally representing the culture. The process to create the piece so easy. Friendship. Mai Lê and Lauriane are old friends.
Tatiana, we used to dance together when I was way younger, so we've known each other for a very long time now.
We were already dancing together, vibing together, so it was easy for me to find the people to do this piece with. And also the reason why it's even easier for me to do it with them is because we have the conversations about the groove, but the meaning behind and the whole history. We have those conversations a lot. They were willing to go deeper and understand. They were open to have these conversations. They were open to hear me complain about racial issues all the time, almost every day, and to hear painful comments. That was really the key for me to push that piece to where it is right now, and to go deep, to dive deep into that conversation, and hopefully to bring people into being curious. The process was that, and then also their unconditional patience with me on the process, because technically it's very difficult.
She has a capability to understand rhythm and to translate it with her body, that when she showed like Mai Lê and I the first count and the first choreography we did was like about 5 minutes. It was like, wow. Lauriane and I were like, are we really about to do this? Like, it's gonna take us weeks to get an 8 count.
I play a lot with polyrhythms, but also a lot of coordinations, different rhythms, and all that incorporated inside grooves. So it's a lot of multi-rhythms to do, and it's a lot. It took 100 of hours to create the piece and to work on that until we were able to embody what we were trying to do to make it look easy. The whole interpretation and embodiment of the technique that we were using during the piece, that's the main part that grew the most. Us to feel connected more on stage, because it's so difficult. At first we were a lot in our heads. There's a lot of counts, a lot of stuff to think about. And after a while we were able to just feel more, understand our rhythms, connect our rhythms together, and having more fun, of course. And then definitely the video evolved. So the idea was, okay, because of that problem that I noticed when I travel, of the lack of understanding of the groove, how can I show that section and show how the meaning of the groove got almost removed from the starting point of what it is. For the process, I had friends from all over the world that I was able to contact, and please, can you interview people from your country? Not necessarily dancers, it could be musicians, it could be a chef, just to have a broad representation of how people interpret the meaning of groove. And depending where you go, it completely translates differently. People they created their own definition of what is the groove. So for me, that was interesting to go in, to find people from different backgrounds, different places, different profession, different countries, and ask them what is the groove. And from a person to another, the meaning is different.
The choreography ends in a ring shout-esque sequence, with all 3 dancers celebrating the groove between them and the audience. As the lights fade, they move into a counterclockwise circle, slowly dip and turn. They snap to the beat with their arms in the air. The audience rejoices as they witness the dancers' delight in embodying the groove. Through the multifaceted polyrhythmic dynamic of the groove, Dance Within Your Dance takes the audience on a journey that mirrors and expands both inner peace and struggle. Various vignettes throughout the choreography echo the definitions of the groove. They arrange and rearrange like a Rubik's Cube, like time folding into itself, like the transcendent journey of house music. The groove is something personal, something that comes out from your gut and that explodes in very unexpected ways. I think of it as a way to communicate, a way to share. Tatiana Desardouin.
There you go. Thank you very much. I hope you enjoyed it. And yeah, Mai Lê, I don't know if you have a final word to say.
Thank you for having us, Jane and Arthur and the whole Bad and Papathian crew. If you have any questions on the piece, we're happy to answer them. And, you know, best would be Tatiana, so don't hesitate to stay in touch so you can also just directly contact her. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yes. Oh, I love that. I loved hearing Joya Powell's voice and seeing Lauriane and Mai Lê and Tatiana move. That's very special. What a great way to use the Zoom right now. So I am going to invite everyone to join us. Put those cameras on. Let me go to gallery mode. We'll all be here together. Woohoo. Well, if anyone, you know, that's here has a question, please feel free to put it in the chat. But I will start us off with a quick little question. And in the interest of time, we'll keep this like, you know, brief-ish. And we'd also would love to hear everyone's voice at one point. So the question is, these pieces that we're watching, that we're reflecting on, happened a bit of a time ago, you know, BC, before COVID. So what is coming up for you? What is being reignited? What's being excavated? What's maybe re-inspiring? What's like bubbling to the surface? And anyone who feels free, it might be awkward, we might talk over each other, it's okay. Just jump in, unmute, share the words, and that's how we'll do it.
I'll just briefly jump in. I'm accompanied now with my cat, so she wants to be on too. But I think if I were to re-engage with this, I actually texted a friend just reflecting. It would be a little bit more theoretically meaty, just because that's what I am. It's just a theorist. But the writing that I submitted and that I presented was produced under, I hate the term, we've heard it, but right, like this unprecedented times. And because of the material too that I was engaging with, I had to be gentle with myself in the way that I engaged with it. So I think now, like, I would really have a lot of fun in a theoretical jungle, like, you know, just pulling out things and really unpacking it in that way, but it just didn't seem right at the time. So that's what would change.
And I guess, yeah, I think, you know, hearing Nile and Yasmeen talking about their process too, I felt that in my heart. Like, I know what it was like to be a Black person in the world in the start of the pandemic. So I feel like I definitely want to, again, you know, blast out that y'all did that, you know, like it is creating work under duress, especially, but also like trying to make meaning of it and living, breathing, thriving, caring for everyone. So I just want to hold that space for y'all. Like, yeah.
Thank you, Stephanie. Yeah, I guess as I reflect on the work, I think that we're in a different moment than we were in last year. And there's something that, you know, when I was last year, I was really kind of, not that I was beating myself up, but we were in an oversaturated moment in regards of conversations and discourse around identity that the work doing that on top of the socio-political moment was like too much for me. And I feel like the work I'm trying to make right now is like very much like taking us away from those sort of discourses, but reflecting on the work right now. I'm like, oh, there's nothing wrong with making work about my identity or still trying to untangle the sort of web around that. And I feel like just now being able to look back on that work in 2019 that I've kind of put into like a kind of under lock and key. Like I really have chosen to close off this episodic series and not return to it in this current state of pandemic that we're in. But I was able to be more forgiving to myself in this moment, reflecting on it and understanding like, you know, that it's okay to unpack identity through our work. And that I think that 2020 was kind of like, I could not give myself that space to see that and give validity to that. And right now I'm able to be a little bit more forgiving for myself. So I'm really grateful for tonight to reframe that for myself.
For me, so I would talk for myself, not for Tatiana, but the space or the place where I was at that time is not the same, obviously, that the one I am now. Being a white person inside the Black culture and understanding fully the matters and the topic, around it, the systemic racism and all of it. This piece helped me a lot because I thought I was aware, which, we all have to learn. And then I learned. So when you saw the video, the moment that we did the piece was in 2017. And then when you saw some snippets of videos that it was in 2020. And then all the time that we were performing that piece, we did the work and I did the work and a lot of, discussion towards that topic. And definitely now we use that piece to do a panel discussion after it all the time about the why and where the groove come from, and especially the why, because this is the most important, because a lot of people just want to come in that community and dance and, enjoy just the dancing part and not understanding where it come from. So yeah, it's amazing to see the long process, and I'm really grateful, to be in that community and be able to perform in that piece. Yeah.
Thank you. And I second Lauriane. I think this piece is symbolic of one of the understandings that we received moving to the States and diving deeper into this culture and understanding all the layers, the seen and the non-seen. Going through that process, having hundreds of hours of dance and conversation and dance and vice versa, just all of it, and all of it is linked. It was a great learning curve. We continue to nurture that space of growth. And yeah, I think as you know, we all three of us, Tatiana has a specific background because she also has family here. She's been coming here since she was little back and forth. So she has another lens that we don't have. But I think understanding where the groove comes from, why the groove, exactly what Lauriane shared, and all the social, political, historical conversations that go along is a major, it's a symbol of what we have learned moving here from our previous lens that was pretty limited to whatever lens we have at this point today. And yes, and it has bonded a closer friendship as well amongst us. I truly believe that. And I think it reflects on stage and it reflects in the evolution of the piece as well. So it's nice to rewatch that and share that. Thank you.
I can share that I think oftentimes I'll make something in like a year and I'll be like, okay, check, she's done, and then like move on. And what's coming up for me, which like I've kind of been realizing slowly and slowly and slowly is that like it's not done and it shouldn't be done just because this is like a new thing you did, and what is the journey and how does it carry on, and how do I give permission to like work on a piece for multiple years and not just 1 year, which all feels like tied to capitalism and all the things, just like produce. So I'm just thinking about how to go back into this piece. The thing that makes it the hardest are the platforms to get them places, to be real transparent. They're so freaking heavy, and we had to put them in the basement of BAD, and then each rehearsal carried them upstairs of BAD and then bring them back to the basement. So, I'm thinking of logistics, but I'm also going to allow myself to dream and not get stuck in logistic land, which I often do. So that's where I'm at. Stephanie, do you have something?
I'm thinking, but I want to revisit the question to make sure that I'm answering it. What was the question?
Like, what's coming up from you? What's coming up for you? What's bubbling? What are you excavating?
Yeah, I think a lot about tenderness, right? I think a lot about what kind of tenderness we owe ourselves. And I think that in the process, the world was changing. Like, I just remember January of last year, and it was like pre-COVID. And so I think that I hope that I have been changed by what a global pandemic has meant to the world. I hope that how I've been changed always lingers with me. And I hope that being oriented to tenderness shapes every part of my practice. Even if it's just to me and for me. But I think that I think self-compassion is always the move. But I'm very, very excited to see how it continues to reinvigorate my writing practice and how I collaborate with other folks.
Yeah, self-compassion. All right, y'all, I'm gonna end us with one closing, one word statement, feeling, idea, one word. What is one word that's coming up with your relationship with artist, writer, your pairing? What's a word that's coming up about your pairing? One word. One words are hard. If it's 2 words, what are you gonna do? 1 word, 2 words. Feeling, sensation, color, image, whatever you want to do. Go for it.
Just to repeat it, 1 word for our relationship to what? I'm sorry, I didn't catch that.
To each other, to your partner, to your pairing.
Blackness, amazingness, awesome.
Yes.
Seconding that, I don't know, the word rigor is coming up for me. Rigor, resilience, blackness, all the things.
Growth.
Oh, go ahead.
Growth is coming up for me.
The future is coming up for me.
And I would say fruitful.
Is it cheesy if I just want to say love and care? A little cheesy. All right, y'all. Well, not to be cheesy again, but my heart really does feel warm seeing these connections with each other, seeing these pairings, and yes to the future. Yes, I hope to see you all in person. This was beautiful. And I'm going to pass it back to Jane to close us out. Did I just put you on the spot? I'm sorry.
No, it's all good. Yeah, we're just, thank you so much. I know we just kind of jumped, and it was really, it was nice to watch all your faces get soft when you were talking with each other, because you've gone through something like creative together. It was really beautiful. But that's it. We did it. We did it. And I think I'm going to thank everyone who came tonight. Thank you for being here. Thank you, BAD, always. And I'd like to pass it back to Emmanuel, who I think is going to kick us off the disco ball, and we can say goodbye. And just thank you again so much for taking the leap of faith as you do. Thanks again.
Thank you so much, artists. Such incredible magic. Bad is so grateful, always feeling that incredible creative energy. So important to us, especially to have it, to have artists having conversations with each other. So important in this time of isolation. So I just wanted to thank all these incredible artists, letting us know what's up in these trying times. So if you like, please donate to badbronx.org. We would also like to thank our BAD team right here at Virtually Bad, tonight's Zoom tech support, and BAD's new technical coordinator, Emmanuel Delgado. So grateful to him for making the magic happen. And the rest of our BAD team, Deputy Director Marcus Guadaberto, and BAD's very own fearless administrative assistant, Josiah Vasquez. Tonight's show was part of BAD's ongoing relationship with Pepatian, and we're just so grateful. And there'll be more shows, so stay tuned. Virtually, hybrid, outdoor combinations. We're working on all of it. So next up, we have a Bad on the Block initiative. I will be presenting, I'm Arthur Aviles, I'm a choreographer and dancer, presenting my ritual dance at the Bronx Botanical Gardens. So join my dancers there for a live outdoor contemporary dance presentation. It's nybg.org. That's where you can get the information. It's going to be August 28th, 29th, September 4th, 5th, and 6th. So join us there for that. And another Bad on the Block initiative is that the Hemispheric Institute is archiving 20-something of my works, and there will be a launch in the fall. So check out the dates at badbronx.org. Basically, it starts September 13th. That'll be a virtual event. It's called the Naked Vanguard Archives in Motion. So that's September 13th at the Hemispheric Institute.org. Also, we have High Arts and Bad present a Benjamin Lundberg Torres Sanchez event. It's an outdoor-indoor event. It's going to be live at Bad. It's a wellness event. We have a rain date, and the rain date actually brings it indoors so that our audience can continue to experience it. That'll be September 19th. So once again, badbronx.org. We've got Pepatian's Dancing Futures. We've got 2 of them. The reason is because the pandemic did a real hit on 2020's residency. And so those artists are really continuing to bring their works out. So we have Kayla Hamilton. That'll be a remote event, and that'll be September 24th. And then we have the 2021 artists who will give us their great works in the fall. We have the AATT Academy Dance Compilation will be outdoors, Saturday, September 25th, 3 p.m. So stay tuned, either, physical, virtual, live, you name it. Now we're going to turn the disco ball on and play some music. So if you like, you're welcome to stay, boogie down for a couple songs and or some love notes to the artists. And then, we're out of here. So with a kiss, a wave of the hand, or a snap of the fingers, say goodbye anytime you like. And with all that said, shut up, Arthur, and dance. Bad DJ, please take it away.